Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the briefing room. I should also say hello from Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. It's actually not morning for me. It's 10:30 at night, but that's okay. Excuse the setup, but I want to make sure that I'm still bringing you the show wherever I travel in the world. Actually, the next episode is going to be from Athens, Greece. I'm going to go from here to Athens tomorrow, then Athens to Cairo, Cairo to London, and London back to Washington. But anyway, I'm in Vietnam for a couple of reasons. The most important is to give a speech to a large group of Australian investment bankers. They hired me to come here and speak to their annual convention. It was all loads of fun. But I wanted to take the opportunity of being here to actually see Vietnam, and that's why I'm here for a whole week. I have 4 cousins, 3 of whom are still alive, but with whom I'm very close. And all 4 of them served in Vietnam in combat positions. All 4 of them returned from Vietnam with the Bronze Star, 2 of them with the Purple Heart, and all 4 of them with PTSD. So I wanted to get an idea of what old Saigon, which is now Ho Chi Minh City, was like, as best that I could. I want to show you a couple of pictures first. One of the first things I did was just to walk around the city. It looks more like Hong Kong than any place else that I've ever been. This is a normal, typical evening. It's so hot and so humid during the day that you can't really do anything. And so the whole place comes to life in the evening. And everybody that you talk to speaks English. Everybody that you talk to wants to talk about how much they love Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, because Bill Clinton normalized diplomatic relations with Vietnam, and Barack Obama negotiated the Trans-Pacific Partnership and opened free trade with Vietnam, and it changed the lives of everybody in the country. That's not to say that they have forgotten what the war was like. So I wanted to do several things. I wanted to go into the jungle, and I've got some pictures of the jungle. I'm here with my brother-in-law, and we hired a guy to take us into the jungle. This is about 2 hours southwest of Ho Chi Minh City, Saigon, in the jungle on the way to the Mekong Delta. It really is thick like this. Go to the next slide and I'll show you. Every once in a while, you'll come upon something like this, a sign that says B-52 bomb crater. And they're deep, 6, 8, 10 feet deep, and the jungle has sort of taken them back. One of the things that we did on that first day that we were here, please go to the next slide, was something called the Cu Chi tunnels. The Viet Cong dug 250 kilometers of tunnels. This tunnel has been widened so tourists could get into it. I'm not a fat guy, but my chest was too big. I literally could not get into the hole. 250 kilometers. What you do is you hold that up and then you sink yourself down. I'm stuck. But it just gives you an idea. Vietnamese are small people, and it's because they had been malnourished for so many years. And then these guys had to pull me out because I was stuck. But anyway, they were malnourished, and as a result, they're much, much smaller than the average American soldier. So they took advantage of that by digging these tunnels, using the tunnels to move weapons and ammunition. These are the inside of some of the tunnels, and they go deep. Some of them are 3 meters, some are 6 meters, and some are 20 meters deep. The ventilation systems are incredibly sophisticated. You don't even know that these are ventilation pipes because they're disguised as termite mounds or disguised as bamboo groves. But anyway, it gives you an idea. 250 kilometers of this. Go ahead to the next one. You see memorials, monuments to the North Vietnamese fighters and the Viet Cong, the South Vietnamese pro-communist fighters, everywhere. This was just in a gift shop. And these are some of the remnants of bombs and rockets that were just found right there in that immediate area. We also went to the presidential palace, which was fascinating. More interesting was something called the War Remnants Museum. It will make you sick to your stomach, and it will make you ashamed of many of the things that we did during the Vietnam War, especially in relation to the use of Agent Orange. It's an incredible experience and really something that I think every American should see. With that said, I have not met a Vietnamese who even wanted to talk about this. To them, it's in the past. They like the United States. They like Americans. They want us to be friends. This is all history. They even told me, several people told me that English now is now compulsory in the school system. So every Vietnamese child speaks English. It's really remarkable. Can we go to the next one? We went down also into the Mekong Delta. This is one of the literally thousands of canals where people live and where much of the Vietnam War was fought. It is grim. You can only imagine what it was like 50 or 60 years ago. Water everywhere, bugs everywhere, snakes, and I mean pythons and cobras and crocodiles everywhere. I don't know how people live in these mangrove swamps, but that's what they were, mangrove swamps. I have a couple of other pictures. Go to the next one, please. Just to give you an idea of what it's like. And, you know, most of these boats have goods on them. They're transporting, you know, cases of cigarettes or, you know, pots and pans or passengers or whatever. This is just how people get around in the Mekong Delta. Go ahead to the next one. One of the most iconic photographs of the 20th century is a picture that many of you will know. It's a picture of dozens of people on the roof of a building. Many Americans think it was the American Embassy. It wasn't the American Embassy. It was an apartment building that was secretly the CIA's station in Saigon. There was a helicopter sitting atop this little hut on the roof of the building. People were climbing that now bent ladder, trying to get on the last flight out of Saigon. The picture won the Pulitzer Prize. This is just a working class apartment building now, but we bribed the the security guard down on the first floor, and he let us go up there and take pictures. Crazy enough, there's an abandoned bar up there that looks like it was abandoned in 1975. People just left it the way it was the day the United States bugged out in 1975. It was an incredible thing to see. I'm very grateful to this group of Australian bankers for inviting me to Vietnam. The speech was a lot of fun. I always enjoy these speeches. I enjoy the Q&A after. It gives me a chance to speak frankly about what's going on in the world, much in the way that we do here on the show. And then I went on this, they had a dinner cruise on the Saigon River, which was fun in and of itself. But what I really enjoyed was being able to talk about what's in the news. And I'll tell you what, it's not just the Australians. It's not just the Vietnamese. It's not just the South Koreans. We stopped in South Korea on the way over here. Everybody is confused about American foreign policy. They just simply don't understand what we're doing. I was talking to a Westerner a couple of days ago, and he said, you know, we want the United States to succeed. We all do, because a successful United States is a peaceful United States. And a peaceful United States makes the rest of the world happy. But these wars of choice, like what we're fighting currently in Iran, it just confuses people. They don't understand what the end game is. And I think that they were less pleased when I told them that there doesn't appear to be an end game. The administration really believed that Iran would collapse on top of itself as soon as we started bombing it. We killed the Ayatollah. We took out most of the cabinet. We took out almost the entire military leadership. We took out every nuclear scientist. And all that did was it drove the Iranian people together. It didn't lead to collapse. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. Actually, we're going to start with that. There's a lot of breaking news today coming out of the Middle East and specifically out of the Persian Gulf. The news cycle may feel like it has slowed down a bit. It's August after all, but the war has not. We're on the verge of something that really is a new world order that could shift the balance of power for generations to come.
But you see this ship on fire in the Strait of Hormuz after it was shot by an anti-ship cruise missile fired by the Iranians a few weeks ago. That would have triggered another round of strikes. But instead, the Trump administration appears to be moving in the opposite direction. During a phone interview with Axios, Trump said this, quote, "We are low-keying it. We are only semi-negotiating with them. We're just watching Iran with its huge inflation and the fact that they have no money," unquote. He stressed that Iran is, quote, "in very bad shape," unquote, economically, and has no money to pay its troops. The U.S. naval blockade has exacerbated the Iranian regime's economic crisis, he said. That may be true. It may not be true. But the Iranians said they're not negotiating at all. There's not like negotiations light. There are no indirect negotiations. There are no negotiations going on at all. I want you to take a look at a clip of the Iranian foreign minister.
Okay, so that's the key. Yeah, there are negotiations going on, not with the United States. They're between Iran and Oman. And when the foreign minister said, when he mentioned the maps, he quite literally meant the maps of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the channel on the Iranian side is deeper, and any ship can pass through there. The channel on the Omani side is much more shallow, and it's very difficult for ships to pass through there. It's also more narrow. So everybody goes through the Iranian side. Well, you'll recall in the last couple of weeks, the handful of ships that tried to go through on the Omani side, the Iranians rocketed and set on fire. So what we have here is a negotiation that has nothing to do with the United States, that has nothing to do with U.S. or Israeli bombing of Iran. It has to do with the maritime navigation of the Strait of Hormuz. And all of this comes after the United States backed away from its threats to launch major attacks against Iranian civilian infrastructure. Remember what we said weeks ago. It is a war crime to attack civilian infrastructure, period. It's black and white law. But we attack civilian infrastructure anyway, because who's going to do something about it? Well, why have we backed away from these threats? One likely factor is that American allies in the Gulf have been furious with Washington after Iran retaliated to the last round of strikes by striking civilian infrastructure in Qatar and Bahrain. The Iranian position is, well, if the Americans are going to strike our civilian infrastructure and nobody's going to do anything about it, we're going to strike the American allies' civilian infrastructure because there's nothing that anybody can do about that. That's when Washington threatened escalation. Iran demonstrated then what escalation would look like. They attacked a cargo ship, and Washington backed off. Again, I'm going to tell you, it's a good thing that Washington backed off because retaliating would have ramped things up and it would just get worse and worse and worse, and we still don't have an exit strategy from this conflict. Now Iran is negotiating from one of their greatest positions of strength since the conflict began. Iran has completely shifted its conditions for reopening the Strait of Hormuz. On Saturday, the head of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, Mohammad Bagher Solgadar, said in a statement that in order for the strait to reopen, he said the U.S. must never threaten nor insult Iran in any language. Okay, good luck. Permanently end the war against Iran and Iran's allies in Lebanon, Gaza, Yemen, and Iraq. Well, good luck with that too. Lift the naval blockade and withdraw military forces from the surroundings of Iran. Provide full compensation for war damages, lifting all sanctions, and the release of all Iranian frozen funds. So remember, the Trump administration has said that Obama executed a horrible Iran nuclear deal because Obama transferred $1.7 billion to Iran as part of a decades-old legal dispute over a failed 1979 military arms purchase. If you don't recall, in the final days of the Shah of Iran in 1979, the Iranians tried to buy $1.7 billion of aircraft and Air Force equipment. As soon as they transferred the $1.7 billion to us, the Shah was overthrown, the Ayatollahs took over, and we just kept the money. It's been frozen ever since. So the Obama administration agreed to give them back the $1.7 billion. Donald Trump has complained about that since it happened. But now the Trump administration is talking about unfreezing $25 billion in frozen Iranian assets just to get this conflict to end. Now, my own personal belief is that's actually the right thing to do. He's going to take all kinds of shit for it from the Democrats who are going to use this for partisan purposes. But releasing the frozen Iranian funds is the right thing to do. Lifting sanctions against Iran is the right thing to do. Listen, one of the lessons that I learned here in Vietnam is identical to a lesson that I learned when I went to Cuba in 2022. If you want to overthrow a government and replace it with something that is pro-Western, open the first McDonald's, because everything else comes after that. You can't turn your head without seeing here McDonald's, Starbucks, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Pizza Hut, everywhere you look. And everybody's pro-American. Well, they weren't pro-American when we were shooting them and blowing them up, just like the Iranians aren't pro-American right now. But let that first McDonald's open. We'll see how their tune changes. Same thing in Cuba. If you wanted to overthrow the Castros, or if you want to overthrow the current Cuban government, open McDonald's. Watch the whole thing fall apart. Perhaps the most significant sign of Iranian strength. Those were conditions for reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Used to be Iran's conditions for signing a nuclear deal. You see what I mean? They've taken the same conditions that they were using for signing the nuclear deal, and they sort of transposed them into the terms for reopening the Strait of Hormuz. It's smart, and it puts the United States in a difficult position. So what happens if we agree to these demands? It just kind of puts us back where we started. And when the White House tells you that it's using economic warfare to pressure Iran, that might sound smart, but they've just suppressed protests back in January, killing 30,000 civilians, right? Do we really think sanctions will be enough to win this war? I don't. We've had sanctions on the Iranians since November of 1979. How many more sanctions could there possibly be? Especially sanctions powerful enough to lead to the collapse of the Iranian government. I don't know of any. If there were such sanctions, we would have imposed them already. Well, the Trump administration appears to believe what Benjamin Netanyahu and other Iran hawks have argued for years. Put enough pressure on the Iranian government, weaken the security apparatus, and eventually the Iranian people will rise up and overthrow it. Trump, in his first speech announcing war with Iran, his very first speech, told the Iranian people, rise up, now is your time. That was his quote. Well, just a few weeks after the Iranian police murdered 30,000 protesters, the United States comes in this sad bid to encourage more protests, and they actually decided to start killing Iranian law enforcement. Yeah, let me repeat that. We jumped up and down when the Iranians killed protesters. Many estimates say it was 30,000. The Israelis say it was 80,000. And we decided to start killing Iranian law enforcement officers, police, and domestic security. According to Iran's president, the U.S. has focused not on just killing military officials, but also on killing civilian law enforcement because they believed it would fuel greater protests if the regime lost its police. Listen to this.
What this is that was President Pezeshkian, the president of Iran, addressing the National Security Council. And he is confirming that attacks have taken place against individual police officers. We're not talking about bombing police stations. That's not happening. We're talking about assassins and saboteurs on the ground, likely Israelis, because the US doesn't have a presence inside Iran. The Israelis brag about the extent of their presence. And they are assassinating individual policemen. And what President Pezeshkian said in that clip is, this is something that the Americans and the Israelis did in Afghanistan and in Iraq. It's part of the arsenal of operations that the US and Israel carry out. And what's the result been? The result has been that the Iranian people are as unified as ever. So instead of leading to the immediate collapse of this country, we have unified Iranians on the ground, whether they were pro-regime or anti-regime. I said in the beginning of this podcast series that one of the most important lessons I learned from the Iraq War when I was at the CIA was that we are never seen as liberators. We're seen as attackers and occupiers. I think the time is beyond ready to end this thing. There was another development in the Middle East just over the last couple of days that is incredibly important that the American media has largely ignored. And that is something called the Mecca Agreement. This is footage from Islamabad, Pakistan.
These are three of the most powerful and important countries in the entire Muslim world. Pakistan is a nuclear power. It has nuclear weapons, and it has a bitter, mortal enemy in India. Saudi Arabia has long sought nuclear weapons, actively sought nuclear weapons since the 1980s. And Dewey Claridge, a former deputy director for operations at the CIA, who has since passed away, just before his death, gave an interview on MSNBC in which he said that he believed the Saudis already had a nuclear bomb, that they had purchased it from the Pakistanis. Saudi Arabia's big enemy is Iran. Turkey is one of the most powerful and important armies in NATO, behind only the United States and Germany. And Turkey's big enemy is Israel. So this is a mutual defense treaty, meaning an attack on one is an attack on all, just like Article 5 of the NATO Charter. So the agreement means different things for each one of these countries. For Pakistan, if Pakistan is attacked by India, Saudi Arabia and Turkey will come to its aid. If Saudi Arabia is attacked by Iran, Turkey and Pakistan will come to its aid. 2 weeks ago, the Israeli defense minister gave a speech in which he said that Israel's next war will be against Turkey. So let's play that out. Let's say that there is a conflict between Israel and Turkey. All Turkey has to do as a member of NATO is to invoke Article 5 of the Charter. An attack on one is an attack on all. And theoretically, the United States would have to declare war on Israel. Well, that's never going to happen in a million years. It'll be the end of NATO. But now, nuclear-armed Pakistan and Saudi Arabia will come to Turkey's assistance. It really does change the face of the region. And most importantly, it leaves the United States completely out of it. Wow, first, that's what I want to say. Much of what he said is absolutely true. There's one thing he said that's not true, I'll get to in a minute. But the Israelis are genuinely worried about this. I mean, he just said, we have a frontal, he called it an assessment, a frontal assessment with Turkey, meaning the Israelis are prepared to fight the Turks, even though Turkey is, 12 times the size in population, or not the size, it's many, many times the size. It's 12 times the population of Israel. The Israelis were ready to go at it with the Turks, knowing that the Americans are going to protect them from the Turks. But the Americans can't protect them from the Pakistanis, or even from the Saudis for that matter. So this is something that the Israelis did not expect. I can guarantee you it's something that the Americans didn't expect, but it's something that makes the Turks, the Saudis, and the Pakistanis very, very happy. Now, he made another point too, that Israel is going to have to deepen its relationship with Greece, Cyprus, the United Arab Emirates, and Somaliland. Somaliland is not a real country. It's the northernmost state in Somalia. It is recognized only by Israel, not by any other country in the world. The reason being is that you can practically swim from Somaliland to Yemen, and the Somalilanders are going to give the Israelis an Air Force base in exchange for this diplomatic recognition. Kudos to the Israelis. It was a smart move. But better relations with, Greece, Cyprus, Somaliland, even the Emirates, it's not going to cure anything. The Saudis and the Emiratis are they're kind of involved in a little bit of a diplomatic kerfuffle right now. That's going to pass. They're on different sides in Yemen. That's going to pass. They're not terribly fond of each other, but they live in the same neighborhood. And so the Emiratis are not going to choose the Israelis over the Saudis. That's a pipe dream. Now, one of the things that he said in that clip is just not true. He said that the Saudis were on the verge of signing on to the Abraham Accords. That is absolutely not true. The Saudis have never been on the verge of signing the Abraham Accords. The White House will tell you that they are, and the Israeli media and government will tell you that they are. They're not. The Saudi position on recognizing Israel has been absolutely consistent since 1977. President Jimmy Carter invited the Saudis to Camp David to negotiate the peace treaty with the Israelis and the Egyptians. And the Saudis demurred. No, thank you. Remember, Saudi Arabia is not just your run-of-the-mill country, not your just normal average Muslim country. The king of Saudi Arabia is the custodian of the two holy mosques. His title is not just king. It's king and custodian of the two holy mosques. That carries with it incredible weight, not just in the Middle East, but, excuse me, but in every Muslim country in the world. Opening relations with Israel and not getting a free and independent and secure Palestinian state in the deal is not going to happen, ever. So the Saudis were never on the verge or on the wall or on the fence about the Abraham Accords. They were clear about it. We will not sign the Abraham Accords until there's a Palestinian state, period. That's the end of that. A couple of people have asked me, if I were in a CIA briefing for the United States, what kind of questions would I ask about this new defense pact? Well, I've thought about this, and frankly, my questions would be questions that I would pose to the Secretary of State or to the National Security Advisor, were he not the same person in Marco Rubio. And my question would be, what are you going to do? I mean, this administration has never really supported NATO. They say NATO is outdated and unnecessary. Is it? Is this the beginning of the end for NATO? Do the Turks also believe that it's the end for NATO? And if the answer is yes, what does this mean for a European Union-wide defense pact? Remember, just 3 weeks ago, all of the defense ministers of the European Union, which does not include Turkey or the UK or the US or Canada, met to discuss an EU-wide defense pact. And it's because they just don't trust the United States to be there if they need the help. The world is changing quickly, and we've got a front row seat. If I were in a foreign intelligence service for each of these countries, how would I feel right now? Incredibly optimistic. It's funny to me that the United States seems to be the country that is the slowest to recognize that we have already transitioned into a multipolar world. The United States is not the only great superpower anymore. We're not. We can't win wars. We were in Iraq for 20 years, we lost. We were in Afghanistan for 20 years, we lost. We attack Iran, we're losing. I mean, we're not talking here about sending some planes in and capturing Nicolas Maduro. These are honest-to-God wars, and we can't win them. The Russians are in Ukraine. There's almost nothing we can do about it. Meanwhile, the Chinese are buying friends all over the world with the Belt and Road Initiative. So if I were a foreign intelligence service director, I would be very pleased with the way these things are going. I will add one thing. From the time of my own service in Pakistan, the Pakistanis don't love anybody as much as they love the Saudis. They love the Saudis so much that they named one of the biggest cities in the country, Faisalabad, after King Faisal of Saudi Arabia, because he was so kind and so generous to Pakistan. There are hundreds of thousands, maybe more, of Pakistanis in Saudi Arabia working at all levels of the economy. The military relationship between the two countries was already rock solid, as is the intelligence sharing relationship. So this alliance is a natural move for both the Saudis and the Pakistanis. Including the Turks kind of surprised me a little. And I'm going to go on a limb and say that a year ago, nobody probably would have even thought about inviting the Turks until Israel threatened them. The Turks don't think that the United States or even the rest of NATO is going to come to Turkey's aid if Israel were to attack. And so it sought out new relationships, new alliances, and it formed that alliance this week in Mecca. I think that's where we're going. Back to the conflict, which really sparked the entire current situation that we're in the Middle East. The U.S. proposed a 15-point peace plan for the Israel-Gaza conflict. The most important condition included the withdrawal from Gaza of Israeli forces, coupled with the disarmament of Hamas. Here is Benjamin Netanyahu's response. And for those of you listening, I'll summarize the translation from his Hebrew on the other side.